Everybody. So I'm doing this new thing on Sundays at 8 where I'm talking about the book I just wrote, Trinity Jones the Queen of the Ghetto. And I'm just giving a little insight about where the stories came from, the inspiration, etc., etc. So you can come chill with me and just hear a little bit about the stories. And tonight we're going to be talking about actually the first poem in the book, Poetic Justice. Now, for those of you who don't know, Trinity Jones, the Queen of the Ghetto, is a story about a young woman from East Oakland trying to navigate her environment, navigate loss, navigate all these changes in her life, and transition into, adolescence to adulthood, and balancing faith and all these things, these moving pieces that we all deal with in life, but don't always talk about. Maybe the elders in our family didn't talk to us about them either. And for a lot of us, we just figuring it out as we go. But you don't often hear a person's thought process, right? Like, unless you have intimate relationships where people are, sharing with you their journey. A lot of times you could be with people you have no idea what they're going through because they ain't gonna tell you and they not talking about it. And we just tend to be like that as people sometimes. Not everybody. And if you're open, I commend you because that's healthy. It really, really is. But for a long period of time, I ain't know nothing about that. Like, I had to do a lot of soul searching to figure it out. So, intimacy, that's an interesting word, right? Like, a lot of the times we like to hide, or we like to cover up, or we like to disguise things with maybe a smile or a laugh, or sometimes some people disguise things with being mean or like a tough exterior. But everybody has things about them, that they're not necessarily sharing or talking about. But the whole point of this character is to shed a light on the thought process, how important that is, where you're going for information, who you're looking to for encouragement, who you're looking to for direction. It matters, right? It matters. And hopefully through your life and through your process, because we all gonna go through stuff. I don't care how good it look. We all go through stuff. We all have hardships. We all deal with some common things like death, loss, wrong choices. We all deal with that. We human. We human. But I guess what inspired me, I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but hopefully it's making sense. I'm gonna do better. This is my first time I'm practicing. But what inspired me to do lit was I grew up in church, right? Grew up in church. Went to Catholic schools, all that stuff. But it did not translate into how I was living my life. Or possibly, maybe it did, and maybe it just, and maybe subconsciously, but for the most part, I was not these principles that they were teaching in church. I mean, we could back up and slow it down. I didn't even know they was principles for a living. I just was going to church on Sunday, or singing in the choir, or whatever, reading certain things, but not really registering them and connecting the dots to how this applies to my everyday life. And I was like, oh, as I got older and I went through some things, went through death, lost my father, had was in a relationship and experienced that loss, was a single mother, going through these things that develop your character, working a little 9 to 5, working at Honda, working at Target, barely making a little minimum wage, and then going to school. And so all these things develop you, right? Develop your character. They give you information. They give you, it broadens out your world. It helps you see this is probably good for me. That over there, that probably ain't the best thing for me. You start connecting the dots, hopefully. you start putting it together, but you don't know what you don't know. So don't let nobody fault you for what you don't know. People love to make it look good, but everybody trying to figure it out really. Um, so the whole point of lit is to produce content like stories, film, produce content that speaks directly to that human struggle, but shows how faith actually can play a part bigger than you just going to church on Sunday, right? It can actually help you navigate the systems and the environments that you find yourself in. So yeah, that's a little bit about lit and where that came from. But this first poem, back, right, full circle, back to the story time. This first poem, Poetic Justice, was inspired by the film Ding Ding Ding, Poetic Justice. That is my favorite movie of all time, because I feel like most urban films are male dominated, right? Like, so you usually, or I can't say that because there are some women films, but usually she got to be like, it's like the same storyline. And I feel like Poetic Justice was like a woman, she went through loss, but she was like figuring it out, like she was doing her little beautician thing, and she was mean, she had that tough exterior, and she wrote. So she had this really rough, hard exterior, but like all this beauty inside of her, all this way she had with words, right? And that was her outlet of expressing herself, and how she didn't let a lot of people in. And a lot of women are like that, maybe they don't write, but a lot of women are that way. And I think it's beautiful to see those stories and tell those stories, right? So Queen is really likened to that character, to Janet Jackson's character. Like, she's very tough exterior, and it's easy to judge that. It's easy to see somebody and be like, oh, she mean, or she act funny, or she standoffish. But you don't know what somebody is dealing with. You don't know what they seen. You don't know what they have experienced. And no, that's not your problem. But we should all do a better job at taking the time to realize the world does not revolve around us, right? Everybody got a story. Everybody's trying to figure it out. And like I said, unless you have people who are really open and want to communicate with you, you don't always get to see somebody's inner thoughts. So the whole point of this book is to like show, yes, this woman is navigating. Sometimes it's even like with success. You see successful people and you think, oh my God, they're so great and they're doing all this stuff, but you don't know what's going on internally with that person, good or bad, right? There's a backstory to the story you see. So without further ado, Poetic Justice. And like I said, it's the first poem in the book, Poetic Justice. Poetic justice, but no lucky in sight. Luck runs out anyway. Instead, give me justice. Justice for the pure love that I freely offered, in return was brutally snatched from my arms. The offenders? Empty vessels who look like me. Those I used to call sister and friend. I seek justice for the lying lips and scheming eyes of men who sat before me disguised as lovers. These thieves played the role of protector and confidant, awaiting years for my many barriers and guards to be let down. Years of studying me and getting clues on how to crack my codes, watching me. Watching how to avoid my thorns strategically set in place for my protection, only to conquer me as one of their many conquests, then trample over my leaves. Is that any way to treat such a special flower? To water me, nourish me, only to abruptly uproot me out of the concrete I fought so desperately to grow from? The concrete where I was overlooked, abandoned, stepped on, talked about, and yet still managed to flourish. The concrete where my roots were uncomfortable and extremely difficult to find. My own tears nourished the seed. God himself commanded me to grow, and the mere fact that you found me there in such a lifeless environment should have been proof enough of my potential. Yet you left me there uprooted and lifeless. I almost think you enjoyed it, watching me waste away. You spoke life into me. I bloomed for you, stretched wide and bared my soul, opened the doors to my heart, and gave you a detailed tour and the key. And what did you do? You took the key and vanished. The mere thought alone makes me laugh now. But back then it left me breathless. I was panicked. I was confused. You uprooted my faith and eagerness to love, my innocence, and you planted seeds of doubt and dependency. Now I'm forever damned, uprooted, waiting on lucky? Never again will I open, bloom for men. My source will forever be the sun alone. He never stopped shining on me. He was the one whose words commanded me to grow in this concrete. It was for his glory and to be a sign that points my community, my home, back to the source of true light. Poetic justice. And it goes on. It's a little bit more to the poem. But I know you probably like, dang, she bitter. Or she trying to figure it out. But you know what? That's the stuff we be doing. Yeah, she's bitter. Because she's been taken advantage of and she's trying to figure it out and put the pieces back together. And if you're lucky, you will never have to experience that. But guess what? You just might. You just might. You just might. And you'll live. You could still bloom. You could still bloom wherever you plant it. The sun will still shine, right? You could still grow. But I think denying the fact that that's how you may feel or not stunts your growth, right? So vulnerability is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to share your life lessons. Everything ain't pretty all the time. And everything ain't ugly all the time. You got to have a balance. Because don't nobody want to be around nobody who's always complaining. And don't nobody want to be around nobody who always positive. You got to have a sober mind. But I think it's okay to deal with things and confront issues, right? And so we're going to see Queen. It's bam. It's starting off. And this Queen is not feeling like a queen at all. She feeling real broke down. So let's see next Sunday at 8 how our little flower develops in this journey called life. Good night.